This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
Fan.
Well, this is fantastic. Hey, looky here. It's a covenant catch-up with one of the most popular players and very best receivers in the history of Minnesota Vikings football. It's this guy.
Cousins under center. Dalvin the tailback. 3rd and goal from the 1. Play action. Kirk throws to the end zone. Caught! Touchdown! Vikings! It's Adam Thielen! And it's 36-27 Indianapolis with 5.5 minutes to go in the game.
Who now is this guy?
3rd down and goal from the 8. Empty set, Young in the gun. Cardinals rush 4. Bryce to throw. Back right corner, end zone. Thielen open, reaches up, makes the catch. Touchdown Panthers. 3 drives for Carolina. 3 touchdowns.
I'll tell you what, Bryce just sat back there. They rushed 4 guys. Taylor Moton and the rest of that offensive line is just locking guys up. And Adam Thielen comes wide open on a corner concept, and Bryce put it right on him. And
AT19, Paul Allen. No, AT19. Hey. All right. Maybe that's Xavier Leggett or newly signed wide receiver David Moore. We had a technical situation there with old AT19. We'll get back to him in a second. It's a covenant catch-up, and he also has some football camps coming up. One in Woodbury, one in Detroit Lakes. So Billy, Johnny, Christy, Susie, Antoine, and Tamika, stand by because you can save 30% off that Woodbury camp June 21st. And we'll get to that momentarily. There's going to be one in Detroit Lakes also. Detroit Lakes go crazy. And once we re-engage with AT19, we will talk about those camps, those June camps in the state of Minnesota, and much more. All right, 3-2. Adam, Paul Allen, how are things?
What's up? Good to see you. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, good to chat with you too, man. Appreciate the time. Now, you, we're going to get to the Woodbury and Detroit Lakes camps here momentarily, but man, it's just great hearing your voice. I mean, I've seen your press conferences after games and stuff like that, been following from afar. Of course, the Vikings played down there a couple of years ago. But with your team, man, you guys kind of caught fire there a little bit at the end of last season. You still have some football left in you, don't you, Adam?
I do now. I was ready to be done, to be honest with you. And yeah, like you said, at the end of the year, just kind of showing that improvement that I've been looking for in the team, in this organization, just making that next step, really got me excited to be able to come back and give it one more shot and just see what can happen. I think what they were able to do this offseason, even just adding some free agents, really shoring up the defensive line, making sure that we have as much talent up front as possible, and then hopefully do some big things in the draft, gets me excited about coming back. So definitely things changed the last 4 weeks for me, but excited to be all in and give it one more shot.
Well, when I'm like, you still have some football left in you, you're like, yeah, now I do, but you were thinking about, damn, man, like maybe this is over. When you missed a couple of months last year with that hamstring, is that when retirement or stepping away maybe most crept into your mind?
Yeah, I think so. I think there was a lot of factors. I think every year at this point in my career, you're kind of like, should I do this? Is it worth it? There's a lot of sacrifice that goes into being in this league and trying to play at a high level, right? There's a lot of time that you're pulled away from your family during the season. There's a lot of time commitment that it takes in the off season to be able to, withstand a season and be at your best. That people don't see. A lot of people just see what we do on Sundays, but there's so much more that goes into it. So yeah, I think those things kind of creep into your mind when you're injured and you're not able to perform and team success, right? At the end of the day, at this point in my career, I'm not doing it for a paycheck. I'm not doing it for stats. I'm doing it to try to one more chance to be able to get back to the playoffs and make a run. So when you don't feel like you have that opportunity, it makes you kind of reconsider continuing to play.
Man, it's so great to hear from you. I mean, like we've exchanged with Spearfish Sammy Newton, we've exchanged bus pictures, like heading to stadiums, things like that to kind of stay in touch. But it's just great to hear you, man. And quite honestly, I miss you. What do you do in the off season to stay prepared and intact compared to, say, 10 years ago when you were like 24, 25 years of age?
Yeah, honestly, try to do a lot of the same. The things that have helped me to be able to have success individually, I really try to make sure that I focus on those things, that I'm preparing every single day. And it's something I try to talk to with the young guys. It's not just show up to OTAs, get back in shape, show up to training camp and figure it out. It's like, no, this is your time that this has to be a priority. Coming into the building, getting your lifts in, getting your running in, getting back in shape and physically strong and prepared for OTAs. And then same thing in the summer. You get a little break in the summer, but it's not time to just go to the beach and hang out and drink beer. It's time to really focus in and hone in on your body. And then outside of that, a lot of family time. I'm coaching a bunch of sports for the little guys, which has been a lot of fun. Drawing up flag football plays for the first time has been a lot of fun for me. We ran a triple reverse, a double reverse, and a fake reverse, and all scored touchdowns. So trying to really hone in my head coaching flag football career.
So would that be for young Asher?
That'd be for Asher, yeah.
Okay. Does he have speed? I mean, are you getting him out on the edge? Do you have like a younger version of Michael Orr paving the way in flag football? How are you getting this done?
Asher does have the gift of speed, which has been really fun. He's really fallen in love with baseball. And I don't know if you know much about North Carolina, but the baseball's pretty serious out here. So It's been a little bit of a rude awakening for him, but he's just absolutely fallen in love with it. And I tell him just get the ball and play, because you're gonna beat the throw every single time, because he has the unique ability to have a lot of speed. So it's been a lot of fun. I just posted a little video. His flag football organization, they posted a video of Asher scoring a touchdown, and it was pretty cool to see his kind of speed show off. And he was able to make a couple of cuts that I didn't know he had in his game. So as a dad, it was kind of a proud dad moment.
And the Twitter feed for Adam is at Thielen19, Thielen19. He's Adam Thielen. And this is a Covenant catch-up. Now I mentioned earlier, Adam has a couple of camps. We're going to talk more extensively on it about 5 minutes from now. But one is in Woodbury, June 21st. The other, Detroit Lakes, June 28th. So just mark those dates down and stand by, and we'll give you the rest of the skinny. How about Hitman? Harrison Smith returning for a 14th season here. I know you guys did some golfing in the off season with young J.J. McCarthy. Any surprise with that, with Harrison Smith?
Yeah, every year I make sure that I check in with Harry and just kind of, see what he's thinking. But at this point, it doesn't really surprise me too much. I think his ability to be in that defensive scheme with Flores and his trust and faith that those two have together, I think. When I saw that Flores was coming back, I was pretty sure that I didn't even have to ask if Harry was coming back. But always great to catch up with him. I was able to spend three days and about 8 hours on the golf course with him. And man, what a special guy, special human being. And I know he's loved by Vikings Nation and should be, because he's the ultimate pro and one of the greatest of all times, and not only in the NFL, but obviously for the Vikings.
Yeah, you're missed too, man. I mean, because when I promoted this via the tweet machine, I'm seeing some tweets coming in now about fans who remember you, and they still miss you, man. So don't think that because you haven't been here in a couple of seasons, people forgot AT19, because they didn't. But now down there wearing that teal, this obviously is a key to the equation. Quarterback Bryce Young. He belongs, doesn't he? I mean, he really opened some eyes last season, didn't he?
He did, and I was able to sit down with him maybe a few weeks after the season and really kind of gain his perspective over the last 2 years, and just kind of let him talk and go a little back and forth. But he really kind of opened my eyes of just kind of the last couple of years, hearing it from his side. I've obviously been in close, right there watching it all. But when you hear it from someone else's perspective, it just gives you a different view of it. And I say that all to say that his ability to just handle some adversity, not some adversity, a lot of adversity, his first 2 seasons, year and a half, and then for him to really just buy into what Coach Canales and this organization and Tepper and what this organization really is trying to do, and him to buy into it and just kind of trust it and go just be himself, was really fun to see and be a part of. And then I think his ability to be a leader, he really was able to just kind of say, okay, what does this team need from me? Maybe it's not exactly my personality or what I do, what I feel like my strengths are, but I feel like this team needs a different Bryce Young. And he was able to deliver that, and guys rallied behind it. And it was so fun to see just his a little bit of swagger that he was able to kind of put out there. And again, it's probably not necessarily, I know it's not his personality to do that. He's a really just quiet, internally focused guy that doesn't say a lot. But when he was able to kind of put that fire out there and speak those words that just were loud words because of who he was, and then perform on the field, was fun to watch. And again, probably the biggest reason why I'm back for another year.
That's awesome. Adam Thielen, 9 to noon. With you guys last year, that Eagles game, man, what was that loss to the eventual Super Bowl champs in the final minute 15 and at Lincoln Financial, one of the tougher ones that you've taken regular season wise, maybe in your career? Now, Adam went for 102 on 9 catches against a defense that was going to win the Super Bowl 2 months later, and you guys kind of had him. That was a toughie, wasn't it?
It was tough, and I think you even rewind maybe a week or two before that. We had the Chiefs on the ropes as well, and they kind of led a last minute drive to go ahead and kick a field goal to win the game. I think those 2 games, not only, I think there was 2 sides of it, right? Like the one side was like, dang, like we got to win those games. This is what's keeping us from getting to that next step. But the other side of it was like, hey, we can hang with anybody. And I think it was at that point that we just kind of took off as a team, as confidence, as I think at some point when you have a new coaching staff and you have a new head coach and you have a new GM, it takes, even though those were losses, it takes games like those to be like, okay, I trust these guys. They know what they're doing, and we're on the right path. And I think at that point is when really things started to change and turn in the right direction, and guys just bought in and believed, and it started to show on the field.
Now, I know you love basketball. Do you get to many Hornets games? And if so, do you sport a game-worn LaMelo Ball jersey?
I have been to a few because my wife and I and the boys love going to the games. Was fortunate enough to go to the Hornets versus Timberwolves game and got a lot of grief at the game because I was wearing a Timberwolves hat. But I had to, I'll wear a Hornets hat if I'm not playing the Timberwolves, but we're playing the Timberwolves. They all have a Timberwolves hat on. So it was fun to watch, and was always fun to see Ant up close and personal, and still miss going to those games because we used to go to a lot of those games. And but yeah, Ball is amazing to watch. Obviously a bright future, and excited to see what they can do here in Charlotte. I think the sports have been a little rough the last few years, but soccer team's on a roll right now, and hopefully the basketball and football teams are just right behind them.
Adam, how about this? Justin Jefferson. JJ recently was touring the Gatorade plant, and when interviewed said, Adam Thielen has been the greatest influence to his career. In what ways to help him learn the nuance of how to play the game do you remember? Let's say even back to the pandemic season when he came in 2020. How do you remember that maybe you were able to help him? And let's take it a step farther. With your second-year guy, Xavier Legette, the new guy on the Panthers. Does he tap on you for tips of the trade?
Yeah, I think, first of all, I'd say that those words mean a lot more than he even probably knows. I think as a veteran player, as a guy who wants to be, in a leadership role, when you hear those words, it kind of makes, all that hard work and dedication, it makes it all worth it when you hear words from a guy like that, who means a lot to me. And I'll say that my job was very easy with Justin because he had the ability to not only understand the game at a really high level, but he worked super hard. And when you're in a mentor role, an older guy that's been in the league a while, and you get a young guy like that, it makes your job really easy because you really just you show up where you need to show up, where you feel like maybe you need to step in and lead. But for the most part, you just kind of let those things kind of happen, where he asks questions. Like I said, if you feel like you need to step in, sometimes you do, but for the most part, you just kind of enjoy the process with a guy like that. So, obviously really proud of him, and still try to stay in contact with him because he's definitely has a special place in my heart. So, and then with Xavier, just trying to be around him and just, again, be there for when I need to be there. It's been great. He's been in the building this off season, as well as I have. So been able to really have great conversations and talk about where I feel he could take the next step. There was like a 2-week gap in the season last year where I kind of turned to him in meetings and I said, hey man, whatever you're doing right now, like bottle this up and never forget it. Cause he was practicing at one of the highest levels I had ever seen. And I've been around a lot of great football players. So just got to get him to understand what it takes. Cause he's another guy that's a hard worker. He loves the game of football. He's all in on football. When he can kind of understand where to hone in that attention and that commitment, he's going to be a special player, and it's fun to be around.
Your last one here, then the camps. Your position coach, it's Rob Moore. That's your position coach, right?
Yes, sir.
Stud receiver for the Jets and the Cardinals back in the day. When you started falling in love with Moss around 98, I mean, Rob Moore was just ruling the roost with the Cardinals. And you had Super Bowl winner Keenan McCardell as your position coach here, which is cool, having both those guys around. But any desire to coach receivers when the playing part is done for you?
Yes, and they will be about between the ages of 8 and 14 years old.
Awesome.
But I honestly, to be honest with you, I absolutely love coaching, and I've felt my passion is really for those younger ages. I feel like the impact you can make is so much greater, and they just have this innocence to them that is so fun to be around. So I've really enjoyed that. I as soon as I retire, I will be full-fledged dad, parent, coach, and doing as much as I can until my kids say that they don't want me to do it anymore, and then I'll probably find some other kids to coach. So, but yes, definitely love to coach, but not at the NFL or college level.
No surprise there. All right, last one. These camps. Listen closely, parents. Parents of, let's say, Billy, Johnny, Christy, Susie, Tamika, and Antoine. Woodbury, Adam Thielen has football camps. In Woodbury, it's June 21st. And if you use the code KFAN, you save 30% for the first 19 signups. That's Woodbury only. Then Detroit Lakes, June 28th. Woodbury, June 21st, AT19. Save money. Detroit Lakes, June 28th. Is there a website here, Adam? What more can you tell us?
Yeah, ThielenFoundation.org is where you can kind of find all the information. You can get signed up and do all that. But always in love, again, talking about coaching, right? Like, I love these camps because they're the younger age groups of, again, kids that just want to be there. They want to just run around and catch the football. So that's mostly what we do is run around, catch the football, throw it, and work out a little bit, kind of do some of the things that I do in the off season to train and get faster and quicker and learn how to use your body. So it's a lot. It's honestly probably more fun for me than it is for the little guys or girls. But excited to do it back home in Woodbury and in Detroit Lakes.
That's sweet, man. I'm going to pop it on Twitter here after this interview, and it's great chatting with you. Let's do it more frequently, and God bless you and your family. Best of luck this offseason. Might see you in Minnesota in June, okay?
Yes, sir. Let's do it again. God bless.
Yep. See you, bud. Adam Thielen, one of the great receivers in the history of the Minnesota Vikings and fair country receiver for the Carolina Panthers. He'll turn 35 in August, and he's returning for another season to catch passes from Bryce Young off play action to Chuba Hubbard or Rico Dowdle. Ben Goessling from Palm Beach and the owners' meetings is around the corner. He covers the Minnesota Vikings for the Star Tribune. We've had some rules changes. We've had some things transpire in Palm Beach. And we'll start the conversation with the scribe next.
Wolves.
Oh, good. You homer!
BG, what's going on down there Florida way?
Not a whole lot. We talked to Kevin O'Connell this morning for about a half hour and did all of the free agent updates. There was no discussion of Aaron Rodgers, so it's been a nice, pretty calm day here in Palm Beach.
This is Ben Goessling, covers the Minnesota Vikings for the Star Tribune and StarTribune.com, at Ben Goessling via Twitter. Follow if you are so inclined. It's he's at the owners' meetings. Mark Wilf, team president and owner, coming up in 30 minutes. And this is a Steve's Appliance marathon segment, courtesy of stevesappliances.com. Let me ask you this, Ben. Senior Bowl, so like you've been to Senior Bowl practices before. Of course, you've been to the Combine. Do you like this one, the owners' meetings, best of all when it comes to these ancillary things?
Well, people are a little more relaxed. The weather does not hurt the relaxed nature of it. Also does not hurt the appeal of coming down here. It's, sunny and in the mid 80s. Oh, good for me. But it's fun in the sense that you get a little more time when people are, maybe a little more willing to expound on things and be more detailed about what they were thinking, because a lot of this is after the fact. I mean, a lot of this is, you can ask the why and the how questions about moves they made in free agency and where they're thinking about going from here into the draft. That probably doesn't happen the same way at the Combine. It certainly doesn't happen at the Senior Bowl, because the Senior Bowl is so early in the process that you can't really do much of that. So I do like it in that the work is a little more productive, it feels like, and it's just a more chill atmosphere overall. So yeah, of the three kind of big NFL offseason events, this has become the one I probably get the most out of and probably enjoy the most.
Now, you mentioned Kevin O'Connell chatted with the assembled media earlier today from the owners' meetings in Palm Beach. He was on 9 to noon yesterday, and the only Rodgers that made the chat was Isaiah. What did he have to say today, whether it's about Isaiah Rodgers, Jordan Mason, rules changes? What was your time like with KO?
Yeah, the Isaiah Rodgers thing, it's good you bring that up, because it actually was one of the more interesting components of his session this morning. He made it seem like Isaiah Rodgers is going to play a bigger role in this defense than I probably thought he was going to. I mean, he talked about Brian Flores got a look in his eye when talking about Isaiah Rodgers and what he could mean in this defense. And he basically said when he sees Brian Flores get that look in his eye, he knows kind of to just trust it and follow it. So, I thought at first with him, it's like, okay, he's a 5'9" corner. He maybe fits on special teams, maybe gives them some depth, but I think they have more in mind for him than that. And what that will look like, we'll see. Could be a nickel guy that allows Byron Murphy to play a little more outside, but they seem excited about him. And that the level to which O'Connell brought that up, I thought was one of the more noteworthy things of the session. I mean, he had a lot to say about Jordan Mason and how he helps in goal-to-go situations and red zone situations, which I think we've gotten into a little bit. But those things stuck out because I think those are not the highest level signings of the offseason, not the ones that probably got the most attention. But I think both of those players, they see pretty specific roles for in what they want to be in 2025.
And with Jordan Mason, I think it was a tweet by you. I know I read it earlier, where he talked about Aaron Jones and the 1-2 in Green Bay and he envisions the 1-2 here. For those who missed it, what did he say?
Yeah, he basically said in Aaron Jones's history, it's been better for him when he's been part of that 1A, 1B combination. And I think back to the end of 23, and he was fresh because he was coming off of an injury that had given him time to rehab and come in with not as many carries and not as much wear on the tires as you'd typically have in that part of a season. But when the Packers went on that run in 23, I think he had 100 yards in 5 straight games, and they looked like a different team when he was fresh. So I think they are trying to make
Jordan Mason a little bit of the A.J. Dillon type counterpart to Aaron Jones here in Minnesota, and I think it's helpful to keep him fresh. It's also they want some of those goal-to-go carries, those 3rd and 1s where it's heavy boxes, you're going to take contact, you have to have a guy be able to push through the line. I think they want to put a little more of that on Jordan Mason, probably because he's in a little better spot to do it, and also just because it keeps Aaron Jones a little fresher. So I think they're envisioning it a little more in that way than they did in 24 when Aaron Jones has career high in yards, but also career high in carries and had to play through a number of injuries. So I think a lot of this plan is to use Jordan Mason, but also to unlock what they think will be a better version of Aaron Jones as a part of that.
We have had some rules alterations, including on the boring kickoff, where touchbacks now go out to the 35. Nothing was changed with onside kicks. The kicker is not backing up to the 30 unless I missed something. But what do you think of that?
Well, the kickoff had to get dealt with again this year because the resolution they passed last year was on a 1-year trial basis. They were going to give this a shot, see how it went. It did not increase the number of kickoffs that dramatically. So now moving the touchback to the 35, I think their hope is that becomes such a penalty for the kicking team that they're going to say, you know what, let's put it in play. Let's make more things happen, because the hope, I think, when they did this at first was to nudge that return rate higher than they did. I think when the UFL, XFL had this in, the kickoff return rate was closer to 80%, and the NFL was in the 20s before they put this in. So they, I think, are hoping to get it more in that 60 to 70% range, and they may get more of that in 25, because you see a lot of teams, we saw it last year, where teams would just bomb it out of the end zone and say, let's not mess with it. Giving a team the ball at the 35, especially now with these kickers and the range that they have, I mean, you're talking about needing 25 yards to be in field goal range. Right. So I think the hope is to create more action by making it a larger penalty for the touchback.
Of course, Ben Goessling, Star Tribune, StarTribune.com, weekly 9 to noon. Each and every Tuesday, it's 10:35, just a few more. Why? Because he's in Palm Beach, Florida, and there are excellent things to do. So we don't want to monopolize his time. But of course, there's going to be an expansion to replay assistance, covering more plays starting next year after that Thursday night game where Trey Blake and his overmatched crew had a couple looking right at Sam Darnold, and his face mask was grabbed. It was ridiculous. Not saying the Vikings would have won, but I mean, it was an egregious miss by one of the worst staffs that I've seen in quite some time. So now they're going to make face masking and horse collars part of extended replay assistance. What do you think of that?
Well, I think we saw it last year in that face mask example. I think there were a couple other ones that season where you're saying, how did you guys miss this? How did you not call it? And you're right, it didn't decide that game, but at the same time, it was an 8-point game at the time. They're trying to drive down and hope they can score, convert it to, tie it, send it to overtime, and that effectively made it impossible. It made it a 2-possession game when Sam Darnold got pulled down by that face mask in the end zone. So I think it's a good thing if they have the technology to do it quickly, which I think when we saw replay assists come in last year, they generally were pretty quick with it. So as long as it's not something that is adding lots of extra time to the game, I think it can be effective. And I think it makes sense, if you're going to have it, to broaden out the ways that you can use it. It seemed kind of arbitrary before. So I like the fact that they did a little more of that, because then you have a little less of that confusion of, hey, we didn't see it. All right, there's a replay assist that can help with this. If the call was obvious and it was just missed through human error, it doesn't seem like a huge infringement to say, let's just give a little bit of an aid here.
No change. I believe the tush push bit was tabled. I asked this question yesterday. Tush push stories are boring to read, so I would rather ask people like you, where are the potential physical, the physical nature or the injury related possibilities with tush push, the brotherly shove that the Eagles have been doing with a high level of success for several years? Like, what's the problem with the tush push?
Well, I think their concern is the contact probably at the line of scrimmage, that you have people going low right away, and I think they're worried about heads getting involved. I mean, obviously, the NFL has been trying to take the head out of tackling, from everything from youth initiatives and youth instruction talking points to rules in the NFL. They're trying to make it so that players aren't leading with their head. They fine for that in a lot of cases. I think there's some concern with that in terms of the head-to-head possibilities of the line of scrimmage. Some of this has been, teams saying, is this really a safety issue? Or are you just mad that the Eagles are really good at it and that you can't stop it? So I think a lot of that discussion is why this got tabled and will be decided at the Omni Viking Lakes, I believe, in May, along with the Lions discussion of reseeding the playoff teams. I think that also got tabled down here today.
So what's happening at the Omni in May?
The NFL has that spring meeting in kind of mid-May. There's generally a few things that they either didn't get done here or new issues that come up. They've done this a few times where they'll bring ownership to Egan to get at some of these things done. I think this is maybe the second or third time that the Vikings have hosted that. But a few of these proposals that didn't get decided on today, they basically said, let's reconvene in May, let's discuss it. They may make decisions on the playoff format and the tush push there. Ben,
time for two or three more. Do with the NFL draft coming up a few weeks from Thursday, do you like the Minnesota Vikings to get North Dakota State University offensive lineman Gray Zabel at 24? And I have a reason I'm asking.
I think it's certainly possible. I mean, O'Connell talked today about Blake Brandel and wherever we may else get players to battle with him. So that seemed to be a little bit of a hint in that direction.
Okay, the reasoning is Gray Zabel's coach last year, Tim Polasek, he was on the radio show yesterday, and he told 9 to Noon that the Zabel situation, from what he hears, because he talks to obviously a lot of teams calling the Fargo area code and asking about Gray Zabel, and he said it's reminding him a lot of when Carson Wentz was drafted. And what he meant was that coach talks to teams, and the feel is that, like the year Carson Wentz was drafted, he wasn't really on the radar December, January, February, but then March hit, and he just surged up into the top 5. Not saying Zabel's going to be a top 10 type, top 15 type stock, but he made it feel like about a month out from now, Gray Zabel's going to go much higher than people think. Do you buy into that?
Yeah, I think it's certainly a possibility, and if that were to happen, he may go higher than 24. I mean, that would be the thing the Vikings would have to think about. I mean, that has been a program that has produced NFL offensive linemen before. Billy Turner came out of there, and I think Joe
Haig.
What was his name? Joe Haig.
Yeah.
Thank you. Came out of there. So they've had, it's a program, obviously, that emphasizes running the ball. They emphasize a pro-style offense in a lot of cases. They have had big, powerful linemen, the types that the Vikings have been looking for. So I think Gray Zabel could make a lot of sense as a first-round pick. It will be a question, if he keeps climbing like that, of where he goes. I mean, the question with North Dakota State, I guess, historically has been, okay, does the competition level translate? I don't know that that's as big of a question anymore. They've been good for long enough and played enough FCS teams at a high level that it's harder to say that you can't project to this level. I mean, they've been competitive enough with major Power 4 programs that I think people are saying this translates to the NFL. These types of players are pro-caliber players. I think the reservations about taking things from there, they've been good long enough that I don't think those things are there anymore. So it makes sense that we're seeing some of those players be rewarded with their draft stock, like Gray Zabel may turn out to be.
Are you familiar with a draft analyst, super well respected too, Marty Wexler? He's the guy who gave Field Yates his start, which eventually landed him at ESPN. So you're familiar, right?
Yep.
Man, Marty Wexler pounds the table for O-line, making by far the most sense for the Vikings and their first pick wherever it is. Are you that strong on that approach, or are you willing to look elsewhere?
Well, I think there'll be a couple other spots that they could look, and I am nowhere near the draft mind that Marty Wexler is, but my 2 cents would be I think offensive line is a very viable option. I could see defensive line still because you've got Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen, but both of those guys are in their 30s, and you could look for another piece to add there that could come in and play a larger role in the next couple of years. So Derek Harmon from Oregon is somebody they've looked at and talked with and liked. We heard about some of that at the Combine. I could see that as a possibility. If there's a safety or a corner there, I could also see that, because you always need more corners, as Mike Zimmer has told us, and safety with Harrison Smith, possibly this is it. And Josh Metellus heading into a contract year. We've seen Drew Rosenhaus down here quite a bit this week, being fairly chatty with the Vikings, possibly talking about a Metellus extension. We'll see, but they have questions at that position as well. So if they found somebody at safety, especially when Brian Flores likes to play 3 of those at a time, as we've seen, I could see that being something they take a look at as well.
God bless you and your family. You're elite. Thanks for the help Friday at the Doubletree for the Football Coaches Association. Miss you, and to look forward to seeing you next week, okay?
I will look forward to that when I'm back in the cold weather. We will warm it up by drafting football next week.
Stop being Joe Q, Minnesotan. It's not that bad here right now. It was a little dicey yesterday and a little windy, but you listen to the Fan Travelers forecast. In fact, that's one of your favorites with FM 100.3 KFAN. It's warming, and it'll be fine when you get back, okay?
That is my hope. I'm going from here to San Diego again. Oh, good for me. But by the time I get back, I expect the weather will be much better.
Later, brother.
All right. Thanks, man.
Yep. Ben Goessling, Star Tribune, StarTribune.com. Ladies and gentlemen, coming up next, the president and co-owner of the Minnesota Vikings from Palm Beach, which, as we just heard, Palm Beach, weather-wise, is better than Minnesota right now. Mr. Mark Wilf, copyright Dan Cole, the Common Man. Sir Mark Wilf joins 9 to noon next. Wilf is president and co-owner of our favorite football team, the Minnesota Vikings. He's in Palm Beach, Florida at the owners' meetings, and as he is wont to do, he joins the 9 to noon show on a yearly basis about this time, and here he is. Mark Wilf, Paul Allen, how are things down there?
I'm doing great, PA. How you doing?
Things are well, thank you. What do you enjoy about this week at Palm Beach at the owners' meetings? You in particular.
Well, the sunshine doesn't hurt, but more importantly, we get a chance to kind of regroup, reset some things for the year ahead, and kind of it's another chapter in the off season. Kind of think about our great free agency we've had, get ready for the draft coming up, feel real good about our approach and how we've done, and so it's good to be here with fellow owners, fellow coaches, personnel people, and kind of take stock of where we are as a league and think of ways we can make the game more engaging for fans and advance all things NFL.
Any fellow owners come up to you and put their arm around you and say, "We played against Jordan Mason last year. He's really good. Mark, how did you do it? How did you pull that off?"
Well, I know you're a little tongue-in-cheek there, but there's certainly a lot of recognition that, we're the kind of team now that are attracting all kinds of talent. The word is out that, yes, we have the best facilities, the best stadiums, the best fans, but we also have a football leadership coach, Quasey, Rob Brzezinski, the rest, that we developed a culture where players can thrive, their families can be taken care of, they can hone their craft, and at the same time, we can build a team that really has a shot here to knock down that door we've been trying to knock down.
Yeah, boss. I mean, no tongue-in-cheek from me with the way I phrased it. It's when it happened, at the moment, right after, I was like, okay, so the pick swap this year is just that number, and it's a 6 next year, and that guy's a bruiser. It's a fantastic move in my estimation. Obviously, it has to work out, but it's like they're like Van Ginkel last year, Van Ginkel and Grenard. I mean, I don't know how closely you watch the AFC.
No question. And the interior lines, guys like Ryan Kelly, Will Fries, Hargrave, Allen. I mean, these are top level talents that are going to really make, and the running back you just mentioned, they're going to make a huge difference, just like we had last year with Van Ginkel and the rest. So,
right.
Couldn't agree with you more.
What do you love about Kevin O'Connell as head coach? You extended him earlier this year.
Coach O'Connell, I mean, I think our fans know and appreciate it. He's a great football mind, and as importantly, he's developing a culture of, again, players can compete, get the right players in the locker room, and develop the kind of team that can really win week in and week out. And, of course, you can't ignore the quarterback position. I don't think anybody understands it and coaches it better, and I think that's going to be great for JJ and his development. And so we're excited about 2025 and beyond.
Is Kwesi next, or is that a work in progress?
I think, yes, it is a work in progress. We're having good conversations with him and his agent. And, again, like I said, we like the football leadership we have. We want to keep it together, and that's going to certainly be a part of our off season here.
When it comes to Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, Demetrius Washington, his right-hand man, Ryan Grigson, Rob Brzezinski, and just everybody involved with that, when they came in, they preached collaboration and used several buzzwords that, personally speaking, I've seen they're working. But like, what have you, as co-owner and president of the team, really liked from the beginning to where we are now with how personnel is run?
I think I think you said it. It's collaboration. I think our personnel, our scouts, and our coaches are working very well together. And I can't think of one instance where we did not come to a right consensus and come out the right way. So we feel good about it. You can't forget Rob Brzezinski, of course, our salary cap chief. So there are a lot of parts to this. There's comp picks, and I think we should be hopefully in good stead here for 2026 on that front. And so we're building it with a combination of free agency and draft. And free agency is more and more important, and I think that's an advantage we have because, like I said, Coach O'Connell's putting in the kind of culture where players want to come and be there.
And with the way free agency was handled this year, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but pick 24 or wherever it ends up, don't you think the team has so much flexibility at that spot and with the others they end up with because of free agency?
You don't want to be in a position where you're under a gun, and I think that's exactly right. We can pick best available, best fit to the long-term future of the franchise, and that's what the free agency allowed us. There were some needs we definitely had, and I think we, by and large, filled them with the free agency as well as we could have. And like I said, a lot of guys that we went after were really highly sought after, sometimes by 3, 4, and even 5 teams. And I think it says a lot about where our franchise is and our football leadership that these players want to come to Minnesota.
Mark Wilf, president and co-owner of the Minnesota Vikings, 9 to noon from the owners' meetings. So the kickoff and touchbacks come out to the 35. Nothing changed for now with onside kicks or the kicker moving back to the 30. But with this iteration of the kickoff, what do you think?
Listen, I think it's a direction I think collectively everyone in the league wants to have the play be a meaningful play and balancing health and safety at the same time. I think we saw last year the dynamic kickoff pretty much has the same health and safety as a normal running play you'd see. So that's a huge improvement on health and safety. And actually, this move to the 35 will increase touchbacks and will actually may even reduce punts, which is a play they're looking at as well. So I think there are a lot of good things to this. Of course, we're going to have to build our personnel around it and think about different ways it might affect strategy. But I think this was kind of where this was heading, and we were supportive of it.
With overtime, every team is guaranteed a touch in overtime now. It would have been great in 2009, but we digress. What do you think of that? What do you think of the overtime alteration?
I think they're just looking for continued competitive fairness. So again, we were okay with that in the end. I think there was some modification. It ended up being a 10-minute overtime, but each team will have the ball regardless. So again, that will affect how you look at strategy, how you look at the coin toss, and we'll see how it evolves. But hopefully, we'll avoid ties and just win the game and go home after 60 minutes. That's obviously the goal, and But I think it's a proper change, and it aligns a little bit better with the way that we do it in the off season. In the postseason.
Likewise with expansion, replay, and the assistants, right? Covering more plays starting in 25 for fans. Just think Darnold, SoFi, two looking right at him. Nobody dropped a flag. Well, now replay assistants will look at that.
Yeah, I don't think replay assists will throw flags, but I think now with the replay assist, the refs hopefully will be a little more willing to throw a flag and, hey, we're not sure, let's take a look at it. So that's the plan, and I think certain plays like that are pretty objective, they're gonna go take a look at it that way. Listen, this is one thing about the NFL, we're not afraid to take a look at improving the game, making the changes, and I think that's what fans love so much about the game, and so I think these are all good changes.
Last two here, and thanks for the time, Mark. When the tush push is being discussed amongst owners, do like all the owners call it tush push? Because like it would be weird hearing some say tush push. I mean, do they call it brotherly shove, or like how do you guys handle that?
We all know the names about it. It's certainly heated dialogue, and I think our next owners meeting is going to be in good old Eagan, Minnesota. So at the Omni Viking Lakes Hotel. So hopefully it'll be rediscussed again, and we'll come to proper decision on it. But it's certainly a hotly debated conversation.
Okay. And lastly, outside of the owners' meetings, if you don't mind, I was at the facility within the last couple of months, had the opportunity to have Joe Rush talk about the girls and women's flag football leagues. And so much of it was eye-opening as to how quickly it's growing and what you guys are doing at the youth level, like when we get down to high schools and stuff like that. And, you know, just the amount of resources you guys have pumped into girls and women's flag football leagues. Why is this so important to you?
It's hugely important. I think certainly the NFL is behind it big time in terms of the growth of flag football and having maximum participation from certainly young girls at the middle school and high school levels. I know in Minnesota we've teamed up with 51 high school programs, 7 collegiate programs, trying to get it sanctioned in Minnesota. The growth of women's flag football now an Olympic sport in 2028 in Los Angeles, it's enormous. And I think it's a great way to promote the game, and it's a great way to promote participation by young girls in a great sport. And I'm excited for the future of it. And I know any of you that are listening that have interest in your communities to do it, please talk to the Vikings, please talk to the High School Association, and get it in your own high school, and let's get it sanctioned in Minnesota like it is in a lot of states in the country. Well,
other than me cutting you off twice, great interview. Really enjoyed it. Enjoy Florida, and I'll see you down the road, okay?
All right, PA. Thanks so much. See you soon.
Yep. See you, bud. Mark Wilf, the president and co-owner of the Minnesota Vikings from the owners' meetings. News due nord, an update on the world of sporting activity is